Thank you very much for having me. It's wonderful to be back in Pennsylvania. The roll call to me was terrifically heartening today. I've had a chance to work in Lancaster and the surrounding communities lately. I've been in other parts of the state in past years, and I've never seen such a meeting of energy and importance. I believe that these are the kinds of local democracy, movements in local democracy that the framers dreamed of and that changed the country. And I'm grateful that you're here and that are working to make your communities better. There's no place I'd rather be than with you working on these issues. So thank you for coming, and I hope we can work together. I'm going to talk today a little bit about where we are and how we've gotten where we are in Pennsylvania and in many of the older parts of the country, how they're having dozens and hundreds of municipalities in a common region fighting amongst themselves, working to compete amongst themselves inside of a single regional economy, sometimes doesn't grow the pie, sometimes just causes communities to develop animosities between them. One community may win on Tuesday, another on Thursday, but nobody wins at the end of the week. I'm going to talk about how we got there, the tremendous consequences for dozens and hundreds of older communities, boroughs, cities, older suburban communities throughout the state. It's not just the cities that are feeling the pain of this change, of building whole new rings of communities that you don't need, but dozens and dozens, hundreds of older communities are beginning to really, really feel the pain, here in Pennsylvania perhaps more than any place in the country. The Pennsylvania Economy League has laid out a kind of 5 stages of municipal fiscal decline in Pennsylvania. A community begins its prosperity with low taxes and prosperity. Over time, as it's competing more and more with newer communities at the edge of a metropolitan area, it begins to see gradually increasing tax rates and increasing demands for services. A generation later, or a decade later, taxes increase further, and there begin to be reductions in non-core services. The next decade, you see larger tax revenue increase. The tax revenues or base begins to decrease. So the base of values that the older borough or older municipality sits on begins to shrink. The base of values, what you're taxing, begins to shrink. Then taxes start to go up to produce less services every year. It's like you're putting the older people, the people that need services, on an iceberg that's melting. And every year, as problems intensify, as the sewers get older, as the streets get older, as the people get older, every year that municipality has to tax harder to do less. The last stage is loss of tax base, population, and increasing fiscal stress. This shows where people are in Pennsylvania. In stage 1, you've got no cities, no boroughs, 27 first-class townships, and 399 second-class townships. In stage 2 of fiscal change, you got 15 cities, 99 boroughs, 26 first-class townships, and 259 second-class townships. Stage 3 of fiscal decline, when things are starting to really kick in, you start to feel the difference. One city, 213 boroughs, 1 first-class township, and 512 second-class townships. Stage 4, another city, 366 boroughs, 29 first-class townships, 259 second-class townships. Stage 5, 39 cities, 229 boroughs, 8 first-class townships, 29 second-class townships. You can see the writing on the wall here. You can see more and more of the older communities, not just cities, are sitting on an ice cube that's shrinking as the infrastructure and the power of the state throws infrastructure off into open spaces to build new cities so that people can move away. Fiscally, Pennsylvania's most distressed municipalities are its cities. All 56 fall below the state average for tax capacity. The boroughs tend to cluster in older communities and around urban centers. Many, many of them are in trouble following the decline of the urban center. I've got some maps here. One of the things, I have a little bit of an obsession with maps. People that know me know that. And these maps are all going to be available on the website of the organization tomorrow. You can take a look at them. You can take them home. You can love them as much as I do. I'm going to talk about several regions of the state. I'm going to talk about the Philadelphia region. I'm going to talk about the Pittsburgh region. I'm going to talk about the Lancaster region. I've got brand new data. We've got older stuff on our website that shows this about 5 years ago in all the other regions of the state. This is a map that shows the percentage of elementary students that qualify for free and reduced cost lunch. Every one of those dots is an elementary school. And the red dots, the ones that are in the core of the city, you can see in Philadelphia, most of those dots are red. Most of those dots are places where over 81% of the kids are poor. The orange dots have 51 to 80% poor, light orange 25 to 50. And one of the things you look at is you look at many of the first-ring suburbs, and the schools are red and orange, and in the second category of poverty. There are lots of poor kids in the older communities. Poor children are a powerful forward predictor. They're going to be later the adults in the community. Another thing that happens when communities start to sort themselves out and compete amongst each other, middle-class families that have broad residential choices choose the least poor school districts that they can afford to live in. And as more and more of the first and second ring suburbs become high poverty, more often than not, you're going to see people with choices are not going to choose those places. If they become the poorhouse of the region, the older suburban communities, that's one of the trends that'll follow. Now, even more striking is a map that shows the change in the percentage of kids in poverty. You don't see much change in Philadelphia, but you see a sweeping change going on the inner part of the inner Delaware County and Chester County. You see in the places like Pottstown. You see all throughout the county a growing sweep of increasing poverty. For the last 3 decades in America, the largest growth in poverty has been in older places, older boroughs, older communities. It hasn't been in the central cities. They went through their change. The change is happening in older communities. You can see this in Philadelphia here and in dozens and dozens of older communities. David was talking about race, and race and poverty are often connected. Half of black families in the United States live in the suburbs. Half of Latino families live in the suburbs. If you look at black married families with children, 75% live in the suburbs. And 75% of Latino families, married families with children, live in the suburbs. As black and Latino families move to the suburbs, they have fewer choices than families with the same income from a different race. So oftentimes, realtors will show black and Latino middle-income families a certain set of suburbs, and they'll show white families of the same race, of the same income, different suburbs. Oftentimes, this is called steering. Steering happens to black and Latino middle-income families, families that are college-educated, that are working 2 jobs, that are doing great on every level. Not looking at this pattern, not thinking about things like fair housing, can hurt both black middle-income families, Latino middle-income families, and the communities that become part of that steering process. And so this is something that older suburbs are now feeling the weight of, and that we should work together to stop. You can see the change in these older places.